A few kilometers away from Paris, the capital of fashion and taste, stands a majestic castle that seems to come out from a fairy tale. We are visiting Valentino Garavani's house near Paris, which is called Chateau de Videville. Among all of his luxurious homes, this is the crown jewel of his residence, and admittedly, it is Valentino's favorite. Renovation of a French chateau has been trendy for the last 10 years, especially among the British public, a middle class, of course. They even dedicated a TV series to it, but it looks like the Italian fashion designer Valentino Garavani spotted this trend long before it became trendy and popular. Valentino acquired the 8-bedroom, 3-story chateau in 1995. We will not see before and after pictures, but we will see the finished result in this video. Let's see how the French chateau renovation is done Italian way. Valentino loves this house and stays here whenever he is in France. And in this very mansion he spent the first world lockdown during the coronavirus pandemic. A lockdown spent in luxury, of course. After retiring from the fashion stage in 2008, Mr Garavani spends more time than usual in his French castle, where the design is worthy of the unmistakable elegance of the designer. To enter the chateau grounds, you need to pass through these impressive black metal gates. When Valentino has a party with celebrity guests at the chateau, which he is usually very keen to do, usually journalists gather in front of the gates. The place has some history. Chateau de Videville is a 17th century house built by Louis XIII's finance minister Colbert vaux le Vicomte, and it was his grand weekend getaway house. It's a castle in the communes of Crappier-d'Avron near Paris. Later the chateau became a home to one of Louis XIV's mistresses, Madame de la Vallière. It became for centuries a hereditary noble property. The bird's eye view of the estate shows us that the chateau consists of the main building and several other buildings, a pigeonnier or a dovecoat, a pavilion with a shell grotto, a hay barn, and vast gardens and lawns. Valentino spent 5 years restoring the castle and its garden at considerable cost, which he doesn't like to talk about. The main building that we see is a typical Louis XII structure of red brick with white quoins and window surrounds, a mansard roof with dormers and 2 chimneys. Valentino commissioned the eminent interior decorator Henry Samuel to make the house comfortable yet regal. And the interior designer, in synergy with Mr Garavani, made out of the chateau a majestic jewel of classical design and Rococo. Together, they carefully chosen the mood of each space of the castle after the purchase. This is the front, central entrance of the chateau. In order to reach that big wooden door that will let you inside, you need to walk or drive through the beautiful front yard with a fountain. Chateau's front yard looks like an 8-lane green grass highway, while the rear is populated by giant mounds of topiaries. While driving this long, you will be able to enjoy the impressive beauty of the mansion that unveils in front of your eyes, as if preparing you that you are about to visit someone very fortunate. I wish all people were as fortunate as Mr. Garavani and could afford living in the chateaus like this one. This is the drive to front entrance as seen from one of the chateau's windows. We see now the grooms exercising Valentino's 3 horses, Dean, Ecuador, and Blue Boy, on the front yard of the chateau. When Valentino arrives here, for instance, before the lockdown started, usually his major domo, major person on a household staff, greets him on the porch at the huge wooden entrance doors. The major domo usually arrives a few days ahead of Valentino to get the house ready for his visit and to supervise the staff members. They say there are 30 to 40 staff members on each estate that Valentino owns, but it's not an official information, and it seems like it takes too many people to maintain one property and to serve 1 or 2 persons. Here we see Valentino walking on the picturesque lawn. On the way to the central entrance, there is a stone bench. One can rest on it for some time or watch Valentino's pugs running. By the way, his pack of pugs has a person looking after them, cleaning their teeth and making sure they have a good fresh breath. Here we see Valentino and his guests pictured in front of the central entrance. This is Kylie Jenner walking to the doors to meet with Mr. Garavani. The master of the house himself chilling on the steps and next to the central entrance doors. Let's enter the chateau now. Unfortunately, there are no official photos of the house's interior design, and we can see only the glimpse of it from the documentary videos about Valentino and through some photos from his social media accounts and accounts of his famous guests and his business partner and a friend Giancarlo Giammetti. As soon as you step in, you find yourself in the entrance gallery. In the entrance gallery of the chateau, we find the 19th century wallpaper, antique furniture, and jaw-dropping candle holders. And overall, the chateau itself is filled with 18th century European furniture. An enormous mirror in a golden vintage frame hangs on the wall. Of course, you need to check how you look before leaving the house. A porcelain Chinese figurine of an elderly Chinese teacher or a wise man reading a book stands on the 18th century console table and greets the visitors. The floor is tiled and covered with a rug. This entrance gallery really sets the mood for the whole chateau, and the interior of this room definitely is just what you expect when entering a chateau. It gives you the feeling and actually really looks like a fairy tale castle. Behind the doors on the left, you can see a staircase leading to the second floor. For the staircase, Valentino chose warm pastel beige colors to make it look lighter, bigger, and it feels cozy, just like at home. The staircase landing is lighted with a lamp hanging on the side wall and by a big window. A shout out to all the chateau renovators out there. Thanks to Valentino and Henry Samuel, you can see what the ultimate goal looks like for any French chateau decoration. And this is one of the versions of the entrance gallery, which is more late one, I think. And we can see it in the documentary about Valentino. And we can see it from a different angle. The beautiful big red vases greet us as soon as we enter the mansion, and red is the favorite Valentino's color, just for information. We can see paintings, most probably of 18th century, lining up the walls of the entrance gallery, and a lovely 18th century blue velvet bench is comfortably placed at the entrance, just in case someone needs to have a seat. Let's go to the sitting room. It locates on the first floor of the house, and it is very big and very spacious and full of light, thanks to the French windows lining the frontal facade of the chateau. The walls of the sitting room are painted in warm white color. The wooden trusses on the ceiling were painted white too. The sitting room is divided into several sitting islands or areas, which consist of sofas and armchairs. We can see here many white shelves with magazines. There are beautiful blue and white lamps, which are Chinese and vintage, and most probably cost a fortune. On the other end of the sitting room, we can see a fireplace and various antique vases, which are proudly displayed on the mantelpiece. The checked brown and white armchairs, together with white wooden trusses and the mantelpiece, create the atmosphere of a rustic farm-like room, which is a stone throw away from the elegant entrance gallery that we visited before. There are many decorative elements in the room, if you have noticed, mainly the Chinese blue and white porcelain, of which Valentino is very proud. And these porcelain objects give style to the sitting room, don't you think so? It reminds you that you are not on the farm, but in the chateau of Valentino, after all. The decorative palm trees give an exotic touch to this cozy sitting room. Here and there we see art paintings hanging on the walls. There are 2 mirrors in the room placed in such way as to reflect daylight coming from the French windows. And now let's go to the drawing room. The drawing room is the finest example of the Rococo interior design style. It is full of Rococo antique furniture. This room definitely speaks French, royal, Louis XIII and XIV. And it wouldn't be a Rococo-style room without the beautiful crystal chandelier. One of the corners of the drawing room proudly display a collection of antique Chinese porcelain vases and an antique painting which depicts an everyday life in China in one of the past centuries. Look at that golden Rococo console table and its intricately carved wooden stands. What a beauty! In overall, it is an incredibly intimate and romantic place. And of all of Valentino's magnificent properties, this is his favorite. Each July, the doors of Videville are thrown open for a gala party. One of the parties included the Love Ball, in aid of Natalia Vadanova's Naked Heart Foundation. In this picture, Valentino stands together with the model in one of the Chateau's rooms, which looks more like a ballroom to me. This picture was taken during one of charity dinners that Valentino is so keen to hold. In any way, it wouldn't be a true chateau if it didn't have a ballroom, would it? This is a small arrangement of minimalistic vases next to the window overlooking the gardens that we are going to visit a bit later in this tour. And now we are going to visit dining rooms. It looks like there are at least 4 dining rooms in the chateau, and the dining spots can also be found outside in the gardens of the chateau. Well, what can I say? Valentino wouldn't be a true Italian if he didn't like to enjoy the food and paid a lot of attention to it and the way the food is served, meaning table settings. Mr. Garavani was already on the crest of the wave with the table setting, or tablescaping, like they say. Valentino loves to give great reception, in which he meticulously chooses from dishes to cutlery to glasses and any other kind of decoration. Valentino even allowed to publish a book about his love of tablescaping, which is called At Emperor's Table. That's a very modest title to give yourself, Mr. Garavani. The book is full of recipes and table settings from his various homes around the world. Valentino said, "I'm very often alone and enjoying my houses. Entertaining 30 or 1 is the same. The food has to be on a beautiful plate." In his collection, he has Mataide Chinese porcelain. The precious pieces in his collection are wine containers in crystal and Russian coral, Fabergé wine decanters with intricate crystal handles finished in silver. Tablecloths are in elegant and precious linen. The refined fabrics make the tables of the castle a dream for the eyes, but also for the palate. An iconic one is Meissen Porcelain Swan collection, with which Valentino decorates his sumptuous tables for the guests of high ranks during the private events. For instance, the Meissen Swans were present on the brunch table in honor of Kim Kardashian in 2014. Kim Kardashian was Valentino's guest of honor, and they experienced Italian hospitality and intercontinental taste of the landlord. Together with his faithful business partner Giancarlo Giammetti, the couturier hosted on the sumptuous reception room a lunch in honor of the wedding. During the visit, the guests enjoyed many courses. For dessert came a sugar-free cake that said Kanye and Kim with arrows and hearts. It was made with substitute for sugar. "It's my dietary cake," said Valentino. It was made of green apples and strawberries. Then came the blonde sugar bowl, subtly filled with peach and lychee sorbet. On that day, the guests appreciated the incredible kindness of the staff, strolled with Valentino in the gardens, and posed for the pictures on the famous lawn in front of the house. You probably also have noticed that flowers are protagonists of Chateau's decor. They bloom on wallpaper, wall paintings, quilted sofas, and on porcelains, making front garden rooms even more luminous and welcoming. Back to the dining rooms. This is one of the main dining rooms for an intimate company of diners. The main color accents in the room are marine blue, mustard yellow, and different shades of white. These 3 colors can be seen in marine blue walls or even wooden wall panels, blue and white porcelain vases near the fireplace, blue and white antique screen, a tiny bit of which we can see on the right. Mustard color with the blue pattern on chairs fabric is mirrored by a chandelier above the dining room. Attention to detail in this room is mind-blowing. A painted tall and porcelain 18-branch chandelier by Meissen hangs above the table. The chandelier color coordinates with the rest of the room, and who knows, perhaps the colors of the room were dictated by this very chandelier. Looking at the table, we can see that each setting has its own silver gilt salt throne. A bit of information. Silver salt throne is a traditional object of Russian culture. They are made of silver and decorated with bright-colored enamel. In Russia, the salt cellar was kept at the entrance of the house, and a piece of bread dipped in the salt was offered to the guests as a symbol of welcome. Otherwise, the salt throne had the place of honor on the table. A small piece of bread was leaned on the seat at the center of the throne, and the guest dipped the bread in the salt inside the throne. And let's look at a beautiful wooden carved ceiling with 17th century patterns and angelic putties holding flowers. The wooden ceiling most probably was kept with its original brown color in order to coordinate with the brown lacquered dining table. And to some of you, brown wooden ceiling in the dining room can give the feeling of coziness and intimacy. Speaking of the table setting, the porcelain mice and swans from the decorative shelves on the wall can make their way onto the table. A lifetime collection of mice and swans that seem to float on a lake of embroidered white linen. This is a dining spot in one part of the garden where Valentino and his guests can enjoy a meal and fresh air. It's a casual lunch set under the garden gazebo in Videville. His guests include, from left, brand ambassador Carlos Suaza, socialite Charlene Chateau, Valentino himself, and honorary president of the Valentino fashion house Giancarlo Giammetti. Carlos Suaza is a friend of Valentino since 1973. His ex-wife Charlene Chateau is a mother for the two Valentino's grandsons, Sean and Anthony. And here we can see a tiny part of one more dining room that is strictly decorated in blue and white, starting from furniture fabric and tablecloth, finishing with the china on the table and decorative blue and white plates on every wall in the room. For big occasions, the Chateau also provides big dining rooms, and this is one of them. Here we can see Valentino together with Sofia Coppola and her parents, when Valentino hosted a post-couture week lunch in the Chateau in honor of Sofia Coppola's recent Best Director prize at Cannes. Mrs. Coppola wanted to see Videville's gardens, and Valentino told her to come when the roses were in bloom in July, though it went from a quiet visit to a lunch for 53 persons. Though the lunch was to have been served on one of the lawns, surrounded by a border of pink blooms, a morning thunderstorm cast a cloud over the idea, so they moved the party into a sort of family room in an outbuilding, replacing huge armchairs and things with the round tables covered in blue and white cloth to match the china. And this is how the family room was made into a dining room, with a mantelpiece, bookshelves, and an ornate herons paintings on the walls. It is suitable for business or charity banquets with a buffet. Thanks to the floor-to-ceiling French windows, natural ventilation of the grand dining room is guaranteed. We see Giancarlo Giammetti discussing business issues with Stefano Tonchi. On a sunny day, no blinds are required for the French doors. Instead, a sunshade or a white fabric canopy is installed above the windows, which looks like a true Italian or southern France solution. One more unusual place, or I would say an extravagant place to have a meal in the Chateau, is on the porch or on a terrace of its back entrance. A makeshift tent is usually installed on the porch, when the weather permits, of course, and servants serve the food to Valentino and his companions sitting in a tent on the terrace of the Chateau. After visiting all these dining rooms and dining spots, we can see that the Italians know how to enjoy food. Like Valentino once said, "I love people who love food. When people don't love food, they make me nervous." And here we are in the kitchen of the Chateau. Let's inspect the kitchen with Valentino's guest, Martha Stewart. Clearly, Valentino doesn't cook himself, so the Chateau's kitchen looks more like a restaurant's one. It is simply an industrial kitchen with metallic kitchenware and appliances. Only on the right on the shelves, we can see a decorative touch even here. Blue and white porcelain vases and pots. Let's go to the bedroom now. The Chateau has 8 bedrooms. We have access only to Giancarlo Giammetti's bedroom, if I'm not mistaken. Apologies, I can be wrong. Anyway, it is the only bedroom in the Chateau that we have photos of. Judging on the white wooden beams in the ceiling, this bedroom locates on the 3rd floor. Most probably, Valentino at his age now doesn't climb this high to go to sleep every night. The red and dark beige flowers on the wallpaper or even fabric give us the feeling of being in a tent, thanks to the ceiling structure too, of course. Valentino is known for making a room look like a tent or a marquee, which we already saw in his Roman villa. The red brick fireplace adds so much coziness to the room. It is decorated with the 17th century painting, which looks like a family portrait. The furniture in the room is antique, of course. Only a TV screen gives the room a modern touch. 2 red lamps on the console at the entrance color coordinate with the wall and flowery patterns. The room doesn't seem to be very bright and full of light, but it's definitely a very nice room to sleep in and to enjoy a breakfast in bed. As you can see, an incredibly sophisticated atmosphere reigns supreme in the property. Let's go to the winter garden now. It is one of the mesmerizing rooms in the chateau. Valentino revealed that his favorite spot on the estate is the chateau's winter garden, a multipurpose chamber furnished largely with an Asian influence. Here we can see Valentino himself in the winter garden, and this is Kris Jenner visited and admired this room so much that Kris Jenner decided to take a picture here. The interior design of this room takes inspiration from its name and purpose, of course. Everything in this room reminds us of a garden, from the painted walls to the big mirrors framed in wooden stems, leaves and branches, painted in soft light green. Piedmontese chandelier hangs from the winter garden's vaulted ceiling that reminds an autumn wreath. On the floor is a floral wool carpet. Chinese panels fill the winter garden's arched niches. A battalion of figures in Chinese costumes is displayed on golden wall brackets. The cocktail table is inset with family rose plates. Flowers in bloom are put on the display in an unusual bull planter. And this is a table setting in the winter garden. The French doors lead out to the rear terrace and topiary garden. This room is definitely the continuation of a nature theme and of Chateau's multiple gardens. It gives the feeling that you never left a garden. Valentino loves the piece of his summer paradise. The gardens of the 280-acre estate surround the house. They were designed by Wirtz International. There are 12 gardens, including a lilac pool. Valentino usually walks and admires his gardens with more than 1,000 varieties of roses. The stone dogs carved in the 17th century by the French artist Jacques Sarrazin overlook a lawn dotted with topiaries. Chateau has its beautiful facade and endless lawns and topiaries. It has verdant lawns, moved in perfect stripes in contrasting direction to create a two-tone effect. This lawn area is definitely a great place for a party or a photo shoot with Valentino's favorite pugs and models. Clearly, Valentino and his guests don't miss a chance to take pictures having a beautiful background, be it the famous endless lawn or flowers blooming in the grounds of the chateau. As you can see, just for the party, the yellow patches of the grass are sprayed with the green paint. Surprising, isn't it? There is also a pavilion, which contains a shell grotto. While Claude de Bouillon did some interior renovation, his main contribution was redesigning the grounds with fountains, ornamental features, and pavilions, including a fictitious grotto or nymphaeum, a sanctuary dedicated to nature. All that is left of the grotto is part of the gate, which is attached to surrounding wall containing 18 allegorical figures in niches. These included 4 sculptures representing the seasons, designed by Jacques Sarrazin. The estate's 2-story hay barn was transformed into a sleekly minimalist archive for Valentino's nearly 5 decades in fashion. The archive building turned out to be minimal and technologically advanced, and it houses the archive of Valentino's fashion house. In 2010, the dinner to launch the archives was attended by various movie actresses and socialites. The estate also offers a private chapel. Let's go to the next building on the grounds now, which is a pigeonnier or a dovecoat. It was featured in magazines and we can see an eccentric interior of it at full scope. A Pigeonnier is a 3-story cylinder structure of limestone and red brick. You'd ask what the purpose of the building is. Originally, in the 17th century, the Pigeonnier was erected to raise doves for food. Please do not confuse them with street doves. Yes, there used to be these species of doves who were highly popular for meals among the nobility, as well as the doves were reared for their droppings, used as fertilizer. The Dovecoat was fully restored and furnished. It has a great mixture of Italian and Asian antiques. Valentino and the interior decorator Henry Samuel took the Chinese theme in a slightly more modern direction and installed a decor of 1920s Shanghai, employing sharp lines and graphic contrasts. A comfortable sitting area takes up the Dovecoat's lowest level. Sofas on the ground level are covered in custom embroidered fabric and scattered with pillows of antique silk. The sofas are decorated in gold with bold patterns and graphic contrasts. Down came the Dovecoat's rickety wood and steps, and up went a curving staircase with a handmade fretwork. We can see here a railing of vibrant painted metal. The round Chinese symbol for longevity is worked into the staircase's railing. The walls are scaled with colorful Qing dynasty ancestor portraits from the early 19th century. The staircases, narrow landings, and galleries display folding screens and statues of cranes. The Pigeonnier has been transformed into a Chinese-themed retreat. Valentino and the decorator took the chinoiserie theme for the decoration of the tower in a slightly modern direction. The tower now serves as a quiet hideaway, where Valentino prefers to read and listen to music. For the direction of the Pigeonnier, Valentino wanted to do something special and more dramatic. For him, it was a challenge to decorate. And we can see why, as Valentino explains himself. You couldn't put in the usual 18th century European furniture and objects, like in the Chateau. It wouldn't feel right for me. Windows and bookcases are crowned by gilded piedmonts that mimic thatched roofs. Iron lanterns hang throughout. Custom-made button-tufted velvet chairs are nestled under the Pigeonnier's windows. The velvet-clad tufted armchairs complement the flamboyant design, don't you think so? The windows are fitted with hand-painted shades. Almost everything that we see here is Chinese, and Valentino thinks it looks quite harmonious in the room. The china cabinet is Italian chinoiserie, and frog-shaped jardinières hold roses from Videville's gardens. Even the cinnabar red bindings of Christie's auction catalogues, filling the bookshelves, fit in with the Far Eastern atmosphere. There are 19th century lacquer chests. Hand-carved tables gleam with inlaid mother-of-pearl. There are 17th century fans on the table. Valentino said there are only 3 things that he can do: make a dress, decorate a house, and entertain people. If you take a look into any of his 6, if to count his yacht, houses, you'll see he can definitely decorate a house. Please write below in the comments the room which interior design you liked most of all. And our tour of the French Chateau of Valentino is coming to an end. The Dovecoat and several reception rooms in the chateau are really like those castles of fairy tales. But here we also see a typical 19th century French decor mixes with details of imperial Chinese aesthetics. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel to support it, and see you very soon in our next interior design tour. We hope that already next year, each person on this planet will have a home like this.